Mahendra Chaudhry, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Bula Vinaka, welcome to the show.
Bula, thank you for having me.
Now, the release of Coup leader George Speight. Tell us what was going on in your mind when you heard the news.
The release was anticipated because reference to it was made by Mr. Mbuka on the eve of the elections in 2022 in a meeting when he was asked about George Speight's release. He answered that if the People's Alliance Party, which he led, won the elections, they would look at the processes for the release of George Speight. So that was in November. Now, also Sodelpa was in its campaign also promising George Speight's release. So his release, when it came, didn't come as a surprise. In fact, an initial move was made to have him released in April of this year, but it did not work out then, and it came later in September.
How did you feel about it? I mean, this is the guy who overthrew your democratically elected government.
I don't think he was the real leader.
Mm-hmm.
He himself said that he was doing the job for some others whom he did not want to name at that time. But when he was prosecuted for this and sentenced, he said that if the police had done its job honestly, he would have had a distinguished company with him on the Nukalau Island, where he was imprisoned after his trial. Now that very clearly points to the fact that he was merely used as a frontman.
Mm-hmm.
There were other people of influence who were behind the coup, who were the real coup leaders.
Mm.
And as I have said in my statement after his release, that if he's really contrite about what he did, he should agree to release the names of all these people who were behind the coup.
And do you think he will?
Well, I don't know whether he will, but I think he owes it to the people of the country, and he owes it to himself also and his family to clear his name and have some peace that he has now done his part in terms of showing remorse for what he had done at the instance of others.
Do you think that he should be released?
Well, I think there should have been a conditional release, that he should divulge the names of the people who prompted him to be the front man to the coup. I think treason is a very heinous crime against the state, and if you look at the immensity of the damage, destruction, and distrust that his actions and the actions of those who were behind him resulted in, then you realize that it's not something which can be easily forgotten or forgiven, and that there must be a condition attached to release. You will know that when he was first charged for treason, he was sentenced to death, because that was what the penalty was then. But this was commuted to life imprisonment, a life sentence. Now, of course, he's done his time, 24 years or whatever it be, but the point is that there should be a condition that, well, we're releasing you, but then you need to tell the people who were the people behind you.
And
because
so,
unless we deal with this, we can't keep these people hidden all the time. They are the real culprits, and they need to be flushed out so that the nation will know who are really responsible and who are behind this. It's very important for Fiji and for the people of Fiji. Otherwise, we'll never end this culture of coups.
Absolutely. And as we talk about coups, like you said, there should have been a conditional release. Why do you think that wasn't the case with George Speight?
Well, this is something which perhaps the Massey Commission, perhaps the Minister for Justice should explain why he was released without conditions being laid. I think they are the ones who should properly answer this question. But they seem to be too eager to release him. The first attempt was made in April, as I said, soon after they came into office.
There are a lot of people out there in Aotearoa and overseas, including Fijians at home. Since the announcement of Speight's release and the others, it has all brought back memories of, May 2000. For you particularly, Mr. Chaudhry, what were the memories, what it was like on that day?
Well, as I said, we knew he was going to be released, so it didn't come as a surprise. But what went through my mind was where would Fiji have been today had not this, tragedy happened? These coups have put us so many years behind in development. It has brought misery to so many people, changed their lives. And the nation today is still struggling when it should be really moving forward at fast pace with development and opportunities for people. That's not the case. These coups have done tremendous damage to the people. It has ruined the lives of many people. And the violence and the mayhem and all these things that followed, they come to mind. Yes, my thoughts are only about the country. As far as I'm concerned, I put it behind me, but I've come out stronger out of all this. This playing the race card, the bringing race into politics, and actually misleading and fooling the very people you are saying that you are representing. They are not representing their interests. George Speight never represented the interests of the indigenous community. Who gave him that mandate? He was an ordinary bank clerk in Brisbane, and then he suddenly became somebody who came here. I got a job. He was involved in a scam, the pyramid savings scheme, which failed with about $160 million out to the people. Then he came here. He was given a job in some insurance company, which then fired him subsequently, and he was to appear in court. On the Monday, he did the coup on Friday. On the Monday, he was to appear in court on a charge of fraud and extortion. No, you can't tell me that this man had the mandate on behalf of the Fijian people to do the coup.
Before we go back to the conditional release, I just wanted to stay with you there on the onus is now, do you think, on the government to explain this, but also to show that it is, committed to ending such actions and crimes against the state and against the people of Fiji. What do you say to the government?
I've made my position very clear, and then I'm waiting for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to come into being so we can pursue this thing further, because I think that people have a right to this. And we must go through that process to eradicate the coup culture until the stories are heard, the stories are told, and justice is done. We'll still be grappling with this bad problem.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to go back to the conditional release. There were deals done and agreements made on Speight's release and the others, among them the head of the CRW unit from the military who led the mutiny at the barracks. But when this kind of thing happens in other countries and in other democracies, we see victims play a key role in release of prisoners. The people that they commit the crime against, their families and the victims of their crimes, are also consulted in this process. Do you think that should have been the case here in Fiji?
Well, if that's the practice, yes, why not? I think there should have been, but here it was all a political move, because the political parties vying for indigenous community votes were using this as a card, and that's the tragedy. What are you telling your people? Where are you leading them?
We're setting this precedent that you can commit treason and you can go to jail and you can get released. Isn't that what this is?
That's what it says, and in the case of two other prime ministers, including the present prime minister, of course, they wrote immunity for themselves in the constitution, right?
This should be concerning, shouldn't it?
Of course it should be, and how do you deal with this coup culture if you write immunity for them in the constitution? At least Speight served his term, but then you look at whether there is justice in this kind of thing, which lets people get away scot-free and others get penalized. So this is a problem we have. Maybe it's unique to Fiji, but we need to deal with it and put it to rest.
While we're still on that, Mr. Chaudhry, the pardon must come from the president, obviously. The president gives the pardon that these, prisoners can be released. And they're pretty much more political prisoners that usually get these pardons. But do you think that the law needs to change for anything? How do we deal with this? Does the law need to change?
The law will need to be changed. I think it's in such cases, political prisoners and all that, Mercy Commission should consult with the victims' families before they decide on that. I think then I'm separating this from the other crimes, right? This is a crime against the state. It's a crime of treason. I'm talking about this kind of crime, where thousands of people's lives have been upset. In such cases, there has to be some conditional amnesty granted, not just no, that's all right, you can go, you're treated like other prisoners who were probably have done that time and are now going out on parole or whatever it be, or being released earlier. Because life sentence can be the whole of life, if it's a mandatory life, but there is provision for release provided ABC. So there should be conditions which must be laid down for these kind of people to be released. But I hope that we won't have any coups in the future. That's our aim. That should be our focus.
But how do you stop something like this from happening again if there's no change in the law that will not allow and set a precedent that deter those who are wanting to do this in future? I mean, do you think that,
Well, I think there are laws in Fiji which, deal with this kind of thing like inciting racial hatred and things like that, which lead up to, this kind of political instability and then eventually coup. But in Fiji, no coup can succeed without military support. You need guns for coups, and guns are only available in the military. In the 2000 coup, guns were released from the military armory, right? So there you are. The military is a problem here too. Now, how do we get that sorted out? I think the commander is doing something in terms of reconciling these own people, trying to bring back the people who did the mutiny back into the force. Now, whether that's the right thing to do, I don't know. I've said I don't think so. But he says that the situation here is unique and we need to unite. Well, it was against military tradition. He agrees there that it's against military tradition. So it's a pretty complex issue here. Who's doing what, and where are you going, and where are we taking our people? What are we telling them?
Absolutely.
Are we guiding them the right way, or are we trying to get a bit of politics into it too, which spoils the whole thing, spoils the soup?
You dwelled on the military there, and I'm glad you did. But the question remains: how much power does the military have, and that's stipulated in this Fijian constitution?
Well, yes, there is argument here that they have the ultimate power that for the well-being and peace and security of the nation. The constitution gives them that power. But I think that's debatable. But nonetheless, that is the understanding they have, and they're able to, intervene into political matters. So this may also be a matter which needs to be sorted out. But then it's in the constitution. You have to change the constitution. Look, we have too many problems, governance problems, and all this sort of thing. We need a new constitution. This constitution is not the right constitution for Fiji. And we will not have, good governance under this kind of a constitution. It invests too much power in the executive. There is very little separation of powers. But we are not dealing with these issues which stand in the way of uniting our people and, giving them trust and confidence in the government and in Fiji's future. We need to be devoting more time to these sort of issues. Unfortunately, the constitution is still there. There is nothing, which is concrete to say, well, the government is moving to deal with this. Also, they said in the elections campaign, the parties said that they were going to deal with this to amend or change the constitution. But action is very slow on these matters. It's lost all its credibility. What trust and confidence can one have in this government? As I said, independent constitutional officers are being, functioning under political influence. And so it's very sad, but these are things that are happening, and I feel kind of sorry for the Prime Minister, who doesn't seem to be getting the support and the goodwill of his team, the people undermining him there.
Do you think that this is a problem for the government, particularly because of they're in a coalition, and so they've got a three-way coalition going here, and they're not seeming to agree on certain decision-making?
Yes, that the coalition is the problem, because they're each pulling in their way, and then when they do something wrong, then there is this political threat that if you don't, if we get pulled in, we'll withdraw support from the government. This was there, and it has dissipated somewhat now since the demise of the opposition, because they are now in three parts and three factions, and now I think one or two factions are saying that they will support the Prime Minister. So at least he's got the support of the opposition. If there is a challenge to his leadership, I hope that these opposition people will support him. To at least see that he himself has now said that admits that a rot has set in his government. That statement publicly. Now these are very strong statements from Prime Minister, and he has reasons to make these. And that should be a cause of worry for people. That what's happening within the government. Are they working together or are they working against each other? Is Fiji politically stable or is it not? And I think our development partners should be asking some questions of the government too. And I've said that if we continue along this course, we are not going to make much progress and we'll have a lot of problems. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's time for the early general election to get a fresh mandate.
And Mr. Chaudhry, just quickly, you've been in politics for decades now, and you're still with the Fiji Labour Party. Are we still going to see Mahendra Chaudhry in the next election?
You certainly will, because I'm worried about the country. I'm not doing this for myself. I can easily retire and live a very, happy, not happy, but a very peaceful life. I'm happy as it is. I've always been happy. I can take any pressure. But I am concerned about Fiji. And that's why I'm still in the fight. Who's going to speak here? There's a culture of silence which is so damning, right? People know. They'll talk privately, oh, this is happening, that is happening. But they're not coming out and saying it openly. Yeah, so, yes, I'm very much alive and kicking for the 2026 elections. But I hope one can be held earlier than that, because we need an effective government here. We can't have this three-legged government which is not working at all.
Mr. Chaudhry, we thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it. Vinaka Vakalevu.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.